Restaurant Unstoppable, episode 671 with Chef Staffan Terje. With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, Chef Staffan Terje. Chef, are you feeling unstoppable today?
Pretty much, yeah. Awesome. I don't know what's going to stop me, so,
I cannot wait to dive into your story. So Chef Staffan Terje was born and raised and trained in Stockholm, Sweden. In 1982, after working in Stockholm for a few years, Staffan was offered a job in Sarasota, Florida. His plan was to stay a year. You ended up never going back.
Exactly.
Really interesting.
Still here.
Yeah. And in 1988, he was lured the lure of Italian cuisine called, and Staffan joined Piatti. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, Piatti Restaurant.
Piatti Restaurant, thank you, in Yountville, Napa Valley. Promoted quickly, he was soon responsible for new restaurant openings, menu development, and training. Other career highlights include a 7-year stint at SanFrancisco's famed Scalas Bistro and cooking at the James Beard House in New York City. Today, Chef is serves as chef partner of Perbacco and Barbacco in San Francisco. I had the pleasure of speaking to your business partner. It was a great episode. I'll be sure to link to that and hear Umberto, really a character. You guys are going to want to listen to that one. But now is your time to shine. So I can't wait to hear your story and find out how you got to where you are today. But let's get that motivational, inspirational ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
Okay, I got to read it to you. So
Please.
This is, it kind of embodies what I've done so far, and this is from a Japanese man, and the quote goes like this: "I just hate the word talent. You buckle down and work, that's talent. Talent has two parts: hard work and grit. If you have those, you have talent to do anything. Never think you're some kind of genius." And this is from Kunihira Kawachi. He's a sword master in Japan. He makes, samurai swords.
So dissect that quote. Why does it resonate with you?
Because that's what it takes, at least for me, to become a chef. It's hard work. And you got to have the grit to withstand the pressures within the restaurant industry. It's a very stressful place. The guests might view it differently because they're here to enjoy themselves. But to put together that enjoyment for the guests, no matter what type of restaurant you're in, it's hard work.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love this industry so much, because no matter who you are, where you come from, what privilege you have, if you come into this industry and you bust your ass, you have just as good of a shot as anybody else to make it to the top. And it's kind of that it's a kind of an equalizer in a way.
It is. And that is, being in the restaurant business has never been, I've met very, very few people that were born with silver spoons in their mouth that work in this business.
Yeah.
It's a working class job. It seems glamorous, but as I said, you got to knuckle down and work hard. Not only physically, but you got to work on your, educating yourself constantly. There's always something to learn out there. You got to work on your technique, and it's a lot of repetition, and it takes a long time.
Yeah, it's like they say it takes 10,000 hours to become a master, right?
Yeah.
I think the other thing,
although some people think that a few hours on YouTube will make you.
We were just talking
proficient.
before we hit record too. We were talking about the majority of kitchen staff being of Spanish or Mexican descent, and especially in California. And now they're taking all that knowledge and all that talent, they're bringing it back to Mexico, and now Mexico is becoming this, like you call what was the term you used?
It's kind of, Mexico City is becoming culinary capital in the world, where people are looking to, and I think it's because they're bringing what they've learned as far as technique and working in restaurants. It's not that Mexico didn't have anything before. They have an incredible culinary history, but they're taking their knowledge from, French cooking or Italian cooking, techniques that they've learned, and they're taking that back and applying it to
not just
their
how to
culture,
cook, but how to run a business, right?
I think they've probably been pretty good at running businesses, but and now the world has gotten smaller because of internet, and there's so much information being exchanged on a daily basis, that it's easier to obtain. But I think this how this has come about is a lot of them worked here, and then you go back home and you apply what you've learned.
I guess what I was thinking, like, to come full circles, like, a lot of people come to this country for opportunity to develop a skill, and then they're getting that skill, and they're going back, and they're bringing this knowledge or bringing this skill set, and they are creating opportunity. To come back what we were saying earlier with the hard work being an equalizer, right? No matter who you are, awesome stuff. So where does it start to make sense to share your story? Where should we go back to?
Probably when I was 13, I started in the restaurant business.
So I heard that read that you were apprenticing, or was it like a work study for a butcher or something like that?
Yeah, in Sweden, you do kind of an apprenticeship when you 7th grade. They send you out into different fields of work, and you can pretty much pick anything you want. A lot of people kind of take it a little bit easier, and they become a teacher's assistant, or they work in a office or something like that. At that point in my life, I was kind of rebellious. I was a punk rocker, so anything to shock people or piss them off at me. So I did. So having grown up on a farm, in my early years, I said, I'm just going to go and work at slaughterhouse, because one is something I kind of knew, and two, it would really make people dislike me. So that worked fine for me. So I spent 2 months in the slaughterhouse and working, and got to learn how to butcher a little bit. And then they offered me a summer job after that. So I went back a couple of months later and worked over the summer. And the old butchers took me under their wing, and I was probably 14 at that point, showed me how to butcher and so on. And from there, I've always had an interest in cooking. Grew up with a family that, everybody was great cooks. My grandmother's mother, aunts.
Now you weren't really expecting to like it, were you? That was kind of a surprise. Like,
I kind of went in for into the slaughterhouse for shock value, and then I realized it was actually a very respectful profession. People were very, it wasn't like that carnage that people think of. It was actually a very respectful, and still is a very respectful job, and it kind of changed my mindset. I suddenly wasn't as rebellious as I thought I would be. And
how did it change your mindset? Get into that.
It taught me a lot of respect for a lot of things, not only for the skill of working and what it takes, but looking at what you're doing when you're in an environment where essentially you're killing animals. You have to have a lot of respect for that.
Yeah.
In the sense, you can't walk in being desensitized and not thinking of what you're doing. It's part of our life. Some people don't agree with it, but the more you respect what you're doing, in that sense, means that you're going to respect it more as it moves further down the line. And always had that in mindset, that you never waste anything, because whether it's a carrot or a piece of beef or something, it was life. And it's your job to respect that.
I love it. And what about the people, these mentors you had, the men and women you were working with? I don't know.
A lot of them, I don't remember them that much, but from what I remember, the ones that you thought were really tough were actually very deeply religious people. So, but after that stint, I signed up for, hotel and restaurant school. I had a kind of a, idea that I was going to quit after high school and just go out and get a job. And when my mom handed me, a piece of paper that broke down everything that I would have to pay for at home, or I had the choice of getting an education, I quickly came to my senses that, okay, I might want to continue educating myself. So I went to hotel and restaurant school in Stockholm, and from there, during that time, I was also doing my apprenticeship as a commis in a French restaurant, and my first mentor, the Swiss chef, has, still today, I remember the things that he taught me, the things that he told me, and I still live by those today.
Let's unpackage some of these things that he taught you. Let's give him a name first.
His name is Kurt Schultes. He still lives in Stockholm. And actually, on my next trip back, I'm probably going to try to reconnect with him because I found one of my old cooks that I was working with who used to kick my butt every day. He said, "Yeah, Kurt is retired, and he would probably love to see you. So our plan next time I go back is to take him out for lunch." He's probably in his 80s now, but
I'm sure he'd love it.
But he's a guy that very disciplined and very how would I put it? He lived by the rules that he'd been taught, and he taught us those in the kitchen. And one of the things he said, being in a restaurant kitchen is 75% cleaning, 25% cooking. Don't think you're going to be standing at stove. It's about getting ready, keeping it clean, keeping it organized, and always made sure you were on time, and that you looked proper in the kitchen, that I learned very quickly that being messy was a no-no. And he told me, he's like, the jacket you wear, the chef's jacket you wear, that's your uniform. You need to respect that as much as somebody in the military does. That is what defines you. And
if you don't have respect for yourself, who else is going to respect you, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So he taught you to have respect for yourself. He taught you to respect the kitchen, the space you're working, keeping it clean, keeping it organized. Yeah. What else did he teach you?
Don't lie about your knowledge. One time, of course, when you're young, you're cocky and you want to show off, and he had this beautiful salmon laying on a cutting board, and he said, "Do you know how to fillet fish?" I said, "Of course, chef. Of course I know how to fillet fish." And I probably cut like 2 fish in my whole life in school. And I get up, and he hands me his knife, and I start cutting. Everything is going well. And then I caught, on one of the vertebrae, and knife was sharp, and I pushed hard, and I managed to go through the backbone of the fish, cut the other fillet in half, and a millisecond later he took his clipboard and just smacked me in the back of the head, so I saw stars. And he just looked at me, he goes, "Don't lie to me."
Oh, man.
And, since that time, every time I put a salmon on my cutting board, I still kind of look over my shoulder to see if he's still there, waiting to smack me. But, I tell people that too. It's like, when I try to mentor someone, it's like, if you don't know, ask a question, and I will show you.
Yeah.
But don't try to half-ass it because you want to show off.
It's okay not to know, too.
It's the best thing not to know.
Yeah, and it's so freeing. Like when you admit what you don't know and you are truthful, that's to carry that burden, that a lie on your back,
well,
right?
It's what they say, a man who asks a question is a fool for a minute. A man who doesn't ask a question is a fool for life.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I like that. Is there anything else that is worth diving into with this experience, with this first mentor you had? Any key lessons in this restaurant? And this is a Michelin-starred restaurant. I don't think
Michelin-starred restaurant. It was hard work, and it was rewarding. they took extreme care of us, but it was getting instilled with this discipline and organization of a kitchen that, learning what the true word of mise en place was, that you're gonna fail service if you don't have all the things in place, and that is key today, and it's going to be the key in the future. If you don't have everything in place that you need, you're going to fail at some point.
So you were working in Sweden for a couple years before.
About 4 years.
Is there any other experiences, any of your mentors? Were you with this restaurant the entire time?
I was with that restaurant pretty much the whole time. I, didn't make that much money, so on my days off, I would work in some other places that weren't that great, but they paid well. You got a beer at the end of the shift.
I got you.
Yeah.
So tell us how this opportunity to come stateside happened.
Well, I was working with a friend, and I just left the restaurant I was at, which was called Gourmet, and I worked at this other restaurant, and the owner had gotten a offer by a Swedish insurance company that was building a condo in Sarasota, Florida, for him to open the restaurant on the bottom floor, and we were asked if we wanted to go and open the restaurant, and of course, when you're in Sweden and you get a opportunity.
22 years old.
I was 19.
Yeah, right.
To go to the big land of opportunity. When you're in Europe, the United States is a dream. No matter how much people still complain about it over there, everybody thinks it's really cool. And you're of course dreaming. I'll be over there driving a big convertible and be really cool. So and then come home and brag about it. And ended up coming over, working in the restaurant there. Went very well. Lived in Florida for 3 years, and a friend that I came over with, he had already moved to California. He gave me a call and he said, "You should come out here."
Did you ever get that convertible?
No, at that point I had a little Renault with a sardine top,
Nice.
which I crossed the country in.
Nice.
It was amazing. Driving on I-10 the whole way from northern Florida to LA, and every time I got passed by a semi-truck or a convoy of semi-trucks, that thing almost blew off the road. It was like a little sardine can.
So you said this restaurant went well. The opening of this restaurant went well. What went well about it? Take us through you must have learned something.
It was something new there. We brought a lot with us from Sweden, the menu and so on, and it was very well received. But 3 years into it, I was pretty much done with it. It was either go home or do something else, and so.
What were you feeling? Why was it time to do something else? Were you feeling like you weren't growing? Were you feeling stagnant?
That was right around the time. I'm kind of a bookworm, so I was reading a lot of the cooking magazines, and I remember reading this article about Napa Valley, and there was a photo of Cindy Paulson at Mustard's Grill, and she was just kind of slouched in a chair with tennis shoes on and an apron, no chef's jacket, and it was talking about this whole new wave of California cuisine. I was like, this looks really cool. I kind of want to check out what this is. So that was the draw, and moved out here and ended up being in Orange County for about a year or so.
Did you have a job lined up before getting here?
Not really.
That's awesome.
It was kind of more of a promise, so I just packed up all my crap in that car, which wasn't that much, and drove out. Took me like 5 days.
But at this point, you're, 22 years now?
22 years
you're
old.
young, man. And I think that's the best thing you can do as a young chef, a young cook, is just get out there and get experience and just go. Because the hardest part is just getting all of your stuff together and pulling the trigger and going. Right?
Exactly. I mean, it's comfortable to stay somewhere, but so I just ended up coming out, and within about 2 weeks I had a job, and
Were you being really selective? Were you being intentional about the work you were looking for
no,
at
my
this time?
friend that I had worked with, he hooked me up in the restaurant he was working at because he was moving on to another place, and so I basically took his job, but didn't really like Southern California that much, and this friend of a friend who had applied for a job in Napa Valley, he went up and decided not to move up. So I'm like, can I have that phone number to that restaurant
There you
that's
go.
looking for a chef? And I called them up, and I got an interview, and ended up moving up like 2 weeks later. And
Nice. So this restaurant, was that in the intro? That wasn't.
no, this was a restaurant that crashed and burned later on for other reasons, which were fairly interesting. But
I'm not speaking poorly about anybody, but being a fly on the wall, knowing what you know today, with the experience you've had and the quality of restaurants you've worked in and opened, what was going on with this restaurant that made it interesting, made it not work?
This restaurant was called the Sherry Oven. It was an old winery up in Napa Valley. In Napa itself, they had restored, and just a beautiful restaurant. And it, a daily changing menu, focused on California ingredients. It really wasn't defined in the sense, and that was the thing, that there was a lot more freedom of expression in what was going on. I would say after the first wave of the California pioneers like Alice Waters, Joyce Goldstein, Jeremiah Tower,
This
Mark
is late
Miller.
80s, early 90s, right?
No, this was earlier than that, and then Cindy Paulson up in Napa. You had all these people that were pioneers in the California cooking, and then this was kind of the second wave when it really started getting notoriety, and everybody's going, what the hell are all these people in California doing? But it was more exploration of ingredients, cross-cultural, forgotten ingredients. Now everybody almost blasé with Meyer lemons, and that was something we had to go and scrunch out of people's backyards. They weren't even available commercially.
That's awesome.
And so it was that kind of pioneering spirit within cooking, and which I thought was just really amazing.
So and when you use the word like pioneer, you're talking like discovery, just really getting out there and just
things that we kind of take for granted these days. There were, here's a big melting pot. So you got a lot of cultures, and every culture brings a lot with them. And so here you were able to cook something French, but you could add things that were distinctly from Latin America or even Asia.
I was gonna say huge Asian influence.
Exactly. I mean, I used to make my little excursions in San Francisco, and one of the things I would do is just go through Stockton Street on Chinatown and go into shops and buy stuff I didn't even know what it was. It was exciting. I remember the first time I bought some durian, the stinky fruit, and bags of stuff. I just wanted to go home and try it, and I had this fruit, and I was driving back up to Napa, and halfway up there, I just had to pull over and just get this thing and toss it in the field, because it was just.
Oh man.
It was I'd spent a good amount of money on this thing, and I just tossed it out. I couldn't stand it anymore.
So I want to zoom to 30,000 feet real quick and get aerial and identify real quickly for me the key experiences, the key restaurants, the key groups you were a part of that really helped form and transform you into who you are today.
I would say after I'd worked, this restaurant definitely helped me. I look at my development more as developing myself, educating myself, and then after this restaurant closed, I got a job with the Piatti Restaurant in Yountville, and that took me back to a backpacking trip around Europe that I did. I ended up in Liguria in Italy, and spent like 2 weeks there, and just fell in love with the food. So the Italian food had always stayed with me, and here I got to dive into that, and really, it just sang to me. So since then I've pretty much been cooking Italian all the time.
Yeah. So you said that you're always working on yourself. You're always trying to improve yourself. In what ways, aside from your food knowledge, because that's obvious. You're reading all these cookbooks. You're exploring. You're trying different things. But how are you growing personally as a leader, as a potential business owner?
You look at people that are inspiring. It doesn't matter what they do. So much is more about how they, act and how they've gotten to where they're at. Like I said, this quote from a sword master. I appreciate knives, but I have nothing to do with blacksmithing. But I look at people that impart wisdom, whether it's 2,000-year-old scholars or a business leader. So I look at every aspect of business, how it's going to help me, whether it's how even though I might not work at the McDonald's, but there might be things that they do.
Especially when it comes to systems and processes,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
Exactly. And I think those are the things that we forget. We tend to go like, oh, I do this, so I'm not going to look at anybody else. But I feel you have to look at, talk to people, ask questions. Always been very inquisitive, asking probably too many questions than people want, but just being inquisitive about
that's a great lesson, though. I think people are afraid to ask questions. It shows that they don't know something, and for some reason, maybe it's an ego thing. I don't know what it is.
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it is. It's like people not asking for help. When they need help. They try to do it themselves.
So many people that I interview that's one thing that comes up so often, is that they're just so inquisitive. They ask questions to the point where it's almost irritating, where it's
and I think to be successful, the more knowledge you have, the more you can apply that, I think the better off you are. All these things that have happened are through history, a lot of it is failures. So you want to find out why people have failed and what other people has succeeded in, so you don't repeat that.
Absolutely. So any key lessons, any key moments at Piatti Restaurant that really helped influence you?
Apart from cooking, it is a very successful restaurant group. One of the people that I do consider a mentor there, although he passed away, was CEO Bob Harmon. And not because he was a cook, but he was a very, very good businessman. He was an attorney and an incredibly good businessman. And to learn from him, just talking to him, talk about business, especially restaurants, and him explaining things that I had at that point, no clue about. Things that were taught in business school and law school, that has helped me tremendously where I'm at today.
What are the biggest lessons Bob taught you? What are some of these things that you just had no clue about that he kind of helped shine light on?
How business actually works.
How does business actually work?
Well, a lot of times, especially in the restaurant business, you get people that's like, say, I'm so passionate about cooking, I want to cook, but in the end of the day, you open up a restaurant to make money, and it's a business. And inside of that, you do what you love, but it also got to pay the bills. And if you don't know how to do that, you fail. And that was, before I was a good chef, and you keep your food cost in line, but I knew, but not the depth.
You knew that those things were there and that this was important, but you didn't know the details of it all.
Exactly. And, well, not only details, I probably knew more details of it, but then how do you carry this forward? You know, how do you take all this information, you know, forward to not have one restaurant? How do you make 2? How do you make 4? How do you make 8? You know, it was seeing how a businessman would think about things, and that taught me a tremendous amount.
So this is the what was the name of this restaurant group? Because he owned multiple restaurants, Bob.
Yeah,
right?
you know, they now I think they've changed the name of the group, but you know, they owned a couple of resorts, and the idea behind this restaurant was that they would open something casual close to the resort. So the first one was in Yountville, and they owned the Auberge du Soleil luxury resort up in Rutherford. So it was something where they could direct their hotel guests to have a casual, a little bit more casual, not so fancy French. And then they ended up opening a restaurant in Santa Barbara, where I lived for 3 years, and because they had a resort down there too. So, and then they started expanding further and further. So
one of the things that, during my conversation with your business partner Umberto is one of the things that when I asked him about you and what appealed about you, or what was so appealing about you for him, was that you knew the numbers, that you were a chef who could cook, but you were a chef that knew the importance of numbers and could run a kitchen, and that could manage a kitchen and be profitable. So is there any other detail, any other lesson, anything specific that you can share with us that might not be common knowledge?
Oh, I don't know if there's any secrets I have in that sense. You know, I think it's common sense, and you know, the devil is in the details. I think, you know, just speaking directly to chefs and people, you know, chefs that want to open their own restaurant, it's a totally different ball game when you become the owner. You know, that index finger becomes crooked, everything points back to you. You know, you can't point the finger at someone else, and depending on where you worked before, you know, now it's all on you.
Yeah.
And so you have to wear many hats. You have to become good at things you never thought you had to be good at before. And you have to really every decision you make is going to affect your business. So, you know, when you're, you know, if something breaks down and you have to call somebody to come out and fix it, you know, pay attention to what they do, because next time you might be able to buy that part and not call that guy.
Oh, man.
And do it yourself with a screwdriver and you know, I mean, some things I have no clue about, and I won't touch electrical things really. That scares the crap out of me. But I've become a fairly decent plumber.
Yeah, there's this story or quote along the lines of this big machine, or maybe it was like a printing press or something, went wrong, and the owner of the printing press called the company to come fix the printing press, and the guy gets there and he goes in, he has his little bag, and he looks and he turns a screw and turns the thing on, and it's working perfectly, and he you know, writes the invoice up and hands the guy the invoice, $1,000, and the owner of the company goes, $1,000? That seems like a lot of money for turning a screw. And he's like, can you itemize this? He's like, all right. So I can't remember exactly how to say it, but the idea is like, you know, turning the screw 10 cents or whatever, like $1, knowing which screw to turn, $999.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you pay attention, the point being, if you pay attention and you know which screw to turn, then you can save yourself $1,000.
Exactly.
Sometimes it's easy just knowing which screw to turn.
Done that a few times. You know, where, you know, now I know how to fix that.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you own your restaurant, that is key.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if you can do it yourself for free, you know, then that money goes in your pocket, not somebody else's.
And it's in a game of small margins. If you can save $1,000,
well, especially now, you know, we're battling. You know, our biggest battle is labor costs. Labor costs are rising, but the general public really don't want to pay more for food.
Yeah. Do we take it? All right, we're back, and I kind of want to unpackage some of these things that you shared with us. You said you learned a lot, that you got to wear a lot of hats. You got to juggle many things. You also said you learned how to move it forward, and you learned how to scale the business and apply it. I'm not quite sure what you meant specifically about that, but that's what I'm here to find out. What did you mean by that?
Well, if you want to expand, you have to, who's going to take care of your current business? So you have to put something in place. You can't be in two places at one time. I mean, right now we have a fairly good setup because the two restaurants we have are in the same building. But, we had a third restaurant for a while, and, it was a good 20-minute walk, and you spend time there, who's here. So you do have to mentor people to step into your shoes.
So is that what you meant by how to move it forward? Is the key there mentoring people to fill your shoes so you can be in multiple places?
Yeah, I think if that is your goal, to expand, and also the fact is that if you want to retain people, if you can't move them up, if you're the blockage for anybody's
growth as a professional,
as a chef or dining room manager or what have you, at some point they're going to leave.
Yeah, if you don't give them the opportunity, somebody else is.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can't blame them for taking the opportunity.
No. And there's many times where there's not going to be the opportunity, but because you might only have one place and that's all you want. So in that case, then your job is to make sure that the person that you have that is helping you, that you set them up for success in their next endeavor.
Can you be specific on I wanted to dive into what you just said. I didn't really digest that until after I started talking again. But before we get into that, how you set them up for success and like whatever other endeavor they are about to take on, how are you setting them up for success within your business? Give me an idea of how you're moving them forward. How are you moving their career forward?
I think by letting go, by showing people, what your expectations are, teaching them what you know. I think that when you have acquired knowledge, some people hold on to it and they don't want to share it because they're afraid that somebody's going to take over. But I think the most important thing you can do is to share the knowledge that you've acquired.
Yeah.
So because you can actually learn from that too, because somebody else can expand on it, and also see how it works for somebody else.
Yeah.
So once you get that going, whether they're going to push you forward and push you up, let you expand, because you can't expand if nobody that's helping you knows anything. You're stuck doing what you're doing. But if you teach people and trust people, and you have to accept that not only yourself, you are going to have failures along the way. Things are not going to go as planned. But you also have to accept that other people are going to fail in what they do.
What happens when they do fail under your tutelage? How do you handle that?
I think what I found worked best is you analyze what happened, move forward, don't do it again.
So
don't dwell on it. A lot of people tend to dwell on their mistakes, but I always feel that the road to success is paved with failures. It's a process of elimination. To get one thing right, you have to fail a million times doing other things till you get that one thing. Wow, now it works.
Yeah.
I think if you have the mindset that you want to do it perfect the first time, you're either going to overthink things or you're not going to dare doing it. Because you have to, it's certain freedom. I think it frees your mind when you go like, hey, this might fail. I mean, I have plenty of dishes that you go like, I'm going to try this, and then the end result goes in the bin.
But you don't know until you know, and that's
Exactly.
and that's how you find out. And that's how you progress,
Yeah.
and that's how you get better.
Yeah.
And just to summarize, like the big takeaway I want to pull from what you just shared with us is that your success is directly proportionate to how many other people you make successful.
Exactly.
You know, and the more
Yeah.
people you can make successful, the more you're surrounding yourself with that cushion, right? Of people that are competent and that can you plug into different places.
Of
And
course.
yeah, you're only as good as your team, right?
Yeah. And I think it's, the further I can go and the further other people can go, that to me is success. I mean, I see success in people that have worked for me previously that are very successful now, and you feel proud that they've accomplished what they've done, and you feel you have a part of it, and then you have to wonder, would they be where they're at today if I wouldn't have imparted some kind of knowledge?
That must be the most rewarding thing there. One other thing that you shared, and I want to pull back some layers on it, is that it's your obligation to make sure people are successful, even if it's not with you. You mentioned if they're going on to pursue another opportunity with somebody else, and you have to set them up for that transition. It's your job to help them make that get into that. I don't want to put words in your mouth. Get into that.
Well, I mean, if you have somebody, let's say a sous chef, that said, hey, I have a opportunity to become a chef de cuisine at another place, this opportunity doesn't exist here, and you go, I'm sorry, because that would mean you kicking me out. You want to make sure that when that person leaves, that they have everything they need to be successful in that job, because at the end of the day, whoever hired them, you're going to look like, well, this guy talked a good game and he came from a place with, good reputation, but he doesn't know crap.
Yeah.
It's going to make me look bad.
Exactly. You're now tying your name to this individual.
Exactly.
And they're going to, their success is going to reflect on your ability to set them up for success, right? Awesome. I love it. Anything else you want to share regarding that, the importance of knowing that you have almost a commitment to your people, even beyond your restaurant?
I think you do. I think, we always tell ourselves that, this is a people business. It's a business to make people happy, and that includes our employees. I think is really, really important. You don't have to be best buddies and hang out with people, but I think it's really important to care for them and recognize that they're individuals, know something about them. It's always going to open people up a little bit more when you talk to them about where they're from, how's their family, how's your kids doing in school. Little things like that goes a long way, just to genuinely care for the people that you work with, and that we how would I put it? We're in the hospitality industry. We have to be hospitable to the people that work with us too.
Yes. I'm loving what you're sharing with us. And, listening to you talk, it's just reminding me of the mission statement of Restaurant Unstoppable is to inspire, empower, and transform the industry. When I say transform the industry, what I mean by that is I think that the industry has gotten very transactional in nature. And it's all about the bottom line. It's all about how can I move my business forward. And when I say I want to transform the industry, I mean I want to transform the culture to make people realize that it needs to be more transformative, that we have an obligation to each other. That it's not just about the bottom line, and that it's about us, we as a collective, right?
I don't think we will have a bottom line if we don't transform the industry. Like I said, it's still a people business. You can't cook remotely. You can deliver food, which is a different topic, but I think that what I've realized over my years in my career is I'm not doing this for myself. What I do is, my job is to make people happy, and that's through my cooking, and that's essentially why people come to my restaurant.
I love it.
They want to leave with a smile on their face.
I love it.
You want to make their day better. If it was bad, and you want them. So that. I'm in the happiness business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, bringing it back to your timeline, your track. This is probably where you learned the most about opening restaurants with this restaurant group, because that was part of your role to go in and to open restaurants. Any lessons you learned the hard way, or any things you did wrong when opening a restaurant?
But there's plenty of things. But I think when you're opening a restaurant is one. Especially if it's your first restaurant you're opening, be prepared for a lot of things to go wrong. The deliveries are not going to show up on time and so on. And make that list. Check it off, communicate to people constantly. You know what you're doing. Let them know that they have to communicate to you, so you know what they're doing. And then have a plan. Don't, you see a lot of restaurants that open up with big fanfare, and then, they start scaling back. Scale up, don't scale down. I would say, you see these restaurants that open up like right off the bat, 7 days a week, breakfast, lunch, dinner, brunch. And then, 2 months into it,
maybe we should get rid of brunch.
We're cutting out Saturday brunch.
Yeah,
because that's not. Well, think about that. You maybe only had 10 customers, but now you're pissing off those 10 customers that can't come on Saturday because they're busy on Sunday.
It's not a good sign, too.
No.
It suggests a lot.
It's exhaustive. Opening a restaurant is exhaustive.
Yeah.
So. When you scale up, you're not going to have a day off for 3 to 4 months, maybe even more. So scaling up is key, because you're going to be dead tired every day you go home, and if you don't have that drive the next day to get up and do it again,
that edge. You're pointing out something that I think is probably the most overlooked, considered reason why new restaurants fail, and it's because they try to do too much too soon. And
you can always add on.
Exactly. If you start where you can and start as small as possible, right, and make it as manageable as possible, then you start you slowly grow over time. These big restaurants that new restaurants are trying to be out of the gates didn't start there. They started small and scaled into that. And I would think we use that as an aiming point. We want that right now. And it doesn't happen right away.
Oh, you're very impatient because there's a big investment. Whether it's a small corner place, mom and pop, or a big corporation, it's a big investment for everybody.
Now, on that note of just starting where you can, start. Anybody listening to this, start now. Start where you can right now, and that might be as little as dinner parties at your house. Create a website, get your name out there, whatever your name is .com, right? Develop a personal brand, start collecting emails, and start doing your thing and test the market. Develop a name for yourself. You can do that right now, right today. And that's small.
Exactly.
What's the overhead for that? Your apartment. You know? So sorry for that little rant, but
no, it's true.
Anything else with this restaurant group before we transition to your next experience? I think there was one more restaurant you worked at in between.
I was at with the Kimpton group.
Yes, that's right.
Scalas Bistro. No, at Piatti, and then after a good amount of years, probably about 7 years there, it was time for me to leave. After a while, the position I had was. When I left, we had like 13 restaurants in 6 states, and for me, I am a very kitchen-driven person, and now I was in charge of all these people that were running kitchens. So, in the end, it for me, which is another thing I think that when you take those positions that you think is glamorous, but for a while, I felt like I was solving other people's problems, whether they had a food cost problem or labor cost, I had to go in and fix that. And then changing menus, training people. I never felt I had a kitchen of my own, and I started longing for that. So
Yeah, for somebody who loves to cook, and that's your passion.
and you want to have your team, and you want to build them up. And I felt a little bit like an outsider at the end. So, but I had learned a tremendous amount, so it was time for me to move on.
What was the biggest lesson you learned in this time before we move on to your next experience?
As I said, looking at restaurants not only as a place for a chef to be in the kitchen and cook and, doing what you love, but also look at it as a business. And, to be able to separate the two, but also combine the two and make them work harmoniously, that, like I said, you create a product that you sell to people to make them happy. So there are so many other things that go into putting than just putting out a plate of food.
So when you were looking for your next opportunity, were you looking for something that was a little more hands-on back in the kitchen? What was your school of thought? What were you thinking? Because you kind of climbed the ladder to the end run.
I felt I was getting out of touch a little bit with what I actually got into the business in the first place.
So what was most important for you in the next job you got?
To be in the kitchen, have a little bit more continuity with the people that I were with, and be able to mentor them and have teamwork, and be able to create and throw ideas off of people that I'm working with every day.
I find it really interesting, and this is something that I see a trend often when I talk to people. We have these aspirations to get the to grow our career, to get the next job, to do all these things, to be as successful, quote unquote, as possible. And we get to that point and we realize I miss where I was. I miss.
Yeah.
I think we put so much value on the title, the job, the cash flow. And then we realize the things that make me the most happy were, the relationships, the work that I do, the thing, Did you find that to be true?
Yeah. It's great when you can say, hey, I'm corporate chef, and blah, blah, blah. But I remember one night I was in one of the restaurants, and I was cooking, and this older lady came up to me, and, she was staring at me, and then she goes, "Are you the cook?" And, it kind of stopped me dead in my tracks, and I kind of wanted to blurt out, it's like, no, I'm the chef. And I looked at it for a second, and I said, yes, I am. And she goes, this was really, really good. And I don't know why I said that, but it sticks with me, and it goes back to, now everybody wants to call himself a chef, and the word chef really only means, you're the boss. You're the guy that took on the responsibility for the whole thing. And they say there's a lot of great chefs out there that can't cook. They can run. You have people that run, these big giant corporate hotels in Vegas. 1,000 employees, and they don't cook much.
But they know how to manage people. They know how to manage systems.
But they know how to manage the system.
Yeah.
And then you have incredible cooks who can't become chefs. They don't have maybe the leadership abilities.
Emotional intelligence, social intelligence.
Exactly. So, my title is a chef, but I define myself as a cook. That's what I am. That's what I've always been.
I love it. So at the Kimpton Group, I think it's worth probably spending a little time here before we talk about how this evolution of your own businesses became.
No, I was offered a job as a chef at Scalas Bistro, here in San Francisco. A big place, high volume, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. It's in a hotel. It's still rolling on today. And, it was a new experience for me. I never worked in a hotel before. And the Kimpton Group was different at that point because they kind of separated the hotels and the restaurant. The restaurant wasn't just an amenity, like in most hotels. They wanted the hotel to be the hotel and the restaurant to be the restaurant. So there was a different school of thought. And that was another place where, I kept honing business skills, about how business should run and what things mattered.
What were the biggest? How did your knowledge and experience evolve in this time? Where were you, and where did you end up?
Well, at that point, being with Piatti, I already had some good business knowledge. So, here was a little bit different because of now you got a hotel and all these things, how things worked, and it was just very interesting. I mean, so I was like a sponge, soaking it up, and at the same time being in the kitchen where I could express myself and cook at the same time and continue honing my skills. So, it was a great experience. I was there for 7 years, so really loved it, and like I said. Because they were opening a lot of restaurants, I got to partake in some of their restaurant openings, and that's how Umberto and I really started striking up conversations, because we, would go to these places and help with the opening, help the chef there, and they would bring in a team, which also something, when you have your own restaurant, you don't have that luxury. You can't call up, bunch of buddies and say, hey, I need help opening a restaurant. Yes. And they're like, yeah, right, you're on your own. But here you had luxury of that, where you would have 4 or 5 chefs and 4 or 5 general managers coming in and just kind of doing grunt work for the key people and helping out, making sure that they had a successful restaurant opening, and Umberto and I, as I said, were part of them, and it was a lot of fun. And that's how we started talking. I had met Umberto many years before that in Orange County when I lived
Oh, really?
there. Yeah, I was working at this one restaurant, and they opened up this new Italian restaurant like next door to us, and decided to go over and just kind of like neighbors saying hi. And Umberto was there, and he was director of operations. Got introduced to him, and then after that, our paths kept crossing till one day I got a phone call from him, and it's like, you want to open a restaurant? It's like, we've been doing this long enough for other people, are you interested? And that's how it started.
I think your answer was literally sure.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, sure.
Yeah. Like, well, what do you, like, you just, yeah, sure. Which I thought was hilarious when you told the story. But one thing, and I make this statement a lot, and it's something I truly believe, that to really be competitive and be the best in the restaurant industry today, I don't think you can do it alone anymore. I don't think.
No, you can't.
You need a partner. You need somebody to focus.
I've been incredibly fortunate because, Umberto is so well versed in what goes on in the front of the house that I don't have to worry about that. I see a lot of my colleagues, chefs that open up their own restaurant, and they go like, "Oh my God, I have get a new general manager. He doesn't know what I want, and I have to be out there." And I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah,
he has forgotten more about service than a lot of people out there will ever know. It's he's a wealth of information, and he's just an incredible, person in hospitality.
There's something to be said about the power of being able to divide and conquer.
Yeah,
and I don't think we put enough emphasis on the emotional strain and thought that goes into having to manage somebody else who isn't a part, like who doesn't have skin in the game, right? Because nobody's going to show up to your business harder than you are going to show up, the owner, right? To work for your business. So when you have somebody else that has skin in the game, who's going to show up, and you guys went 50-50, right down the middle. So you don't to remove that mental energy suck of having to worry about somebody and replace somebody and train somebody, and that is so valued.
I mean, having the right partner in the business is, and like you said, you can't do it alone.
No,
it's not just about putting nice food on the plate.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's obvious one of the first things that might have attracted you to Umberto as a business partner is the fact that he is strong in the front of the house and your focus is in the back of the house, right? So that's the one thing. What else is it about Umberto that makes a good business partner? What was going on that made you think that this was going to be a good idea to go into business with this man?
I think because we have similar backgrounds in the sense of we both
immigrants, or
well, not so much being immigrants, but we both kind of took the long road, going from from the very bottom and up, and then working our way up, and we had to put in a lot of hard work to get there. And I saw that. I was like, this guy is not afraid of working, and because I know that's what it takes.
Yeah. Back to how we started the interview. Grit and hard work, right?
Yeah. And, I mean, if I can work 7 days a week, I will, but, it's not good for you really, but, there's always something to do. So, this is my life.
So reflecting back at Perbacco, opening Barbacco, what did you do right? I mean, there's so many experiences that you've had up to this point opening restaurants. How are you going to tackle Perbacco to do it right, and why was it a success in your opinion?
Well, I think it had to do a lot of things. I think choosing the location, which some people poo-pooed. They were like, it's okay. And that we overcame that. And then I think...
What do you mean they weren't...
They were kind of like, that's not a great location. And...
wasn't it... Oh, it was... Umberto mentioned that he brought one of his past mentors.
Yeah.
And he gave like a B- or something.
B-. Yeah. It's like, it's okay, but it's not great. And people are, you're going to be down there. And I'm like, and I think the fact that, one of the things, we hit the market at the right time. And, we opened up a restaurant. There was nothing similar to what we were doing, so that made it very attractive. I think, we were lucky. We went back and forth. We did our tastings, and we, one thing that I've learned over the years with, especially with food, for as much as I love to cook, I've learned not to become personally attached to dishes, because cooking is about criticism. I'm my worst critic, and when people tell us you could do this different, or this is not good, or you should not do that. A lot of people become very, very defensive because they're so personally attached to it. And I'm like, okay. And then you take it back and disseminate it, and it's like, okay, he said this and this and this, and you start working on it again. You move forward. It's like that. They didn't like it. It's not a reflection on you. Mm-hmm. It's a reflection on the dish. And you just have to take it for what it is. And, that has always been great with Umberto, is that, we give each other criticism, and it's not about to put somebody down. It's about make our business better. So when he criticizes something that I do, take it back. You go, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I think what's the trick to getting into that mindset, to detach yourself from making it less personal and more just constructive?
I think, it's hard because some people are so passionate about what they do, and they think that what they've done is so incredible. But if you can't criticize it yourself, then there's something wrong. I feel there's something wrong. When you go like, what, when you still, I'm always say I'm satisfied and happy with what I do, but I'm never, I'm always looking for more.
So you said at one point you had 3 restaurants, right? Was there a restaurant in between Barbacco?
No, it was after Barbacco was our restaurant, Volta.
So we'll start with Barbacco real quick. How did this restaurant come to be?
kind of funny because when we wrote up the prospectus for Perbacco to go out to our investors, I was the one typing it out. That's one thing I gotta say with Umberto is not the best on computers, or typing things out.
Times have changed. He's been in the industry for how long?
I know.
I can't blame the guy.
And so I was the one typing out our business proposal and the whole thing and the story, and just for some, I don't know what reason, when we looked at this space, where Barbacco is today was kind of crappy deli. And when I say crappy, it was not good.
Didn't you say, I don't want to ruin the story, but didn't you say something to Umberto along the lines of that's going to be ours someday? Or?
I actually wrote on the bottom of our business plan and said, and for the space next door, Barbacco, more to come. I already put a name to it. And Umberto looked at me, what's that? And we'll take over that one day. He's like, you're crazy. And then we started talking about it after a couple of years here. Business was rolling, and so we actually went into the owner of the deli, and he was like, yeah, I want $500,000 for this place. And we're like, it's not worth that. And so we were like, okay, let's think about something else. And then 6 months later, the landlord came to us and says, the space is going to be vacating. Do you want it? Because we have other, people looking at it. And it was
same landlord.
Yeah,
nice.
Same landlord, and it's in the same building. We're sitting right above it, and the fact was that we were going into the 2008 recession, and it's like, okay, we're going to open a restaurant in this business environment. People are losing their houses, and businesses are closing. I said, let's open something casual, not something that we have at Perbacco. Let's open up something that's a lower price point that more people can afford, and do something different, but of the same quality.
Were the assistants going to hang out while their bosses are getting dinner next door?
That was our thought, but it actually proved to be wrong, because now we have a good mix of, our regulars that come here for lunch on Monday, they go to Barbacco on Tuesday. They just want, maybe something a little quicker, and maybe they're eating alone instead of having a client lunch or something like that. So
I think there's 2 or 3 things at least that I want to pull from what you just shared with us. First, when you're looking at a space, your original space, right? Look around it and see what opportunity is right on the immediate satellite. If there's a space that has 2 or 3 locations that are abut it that look like they're on their way out, or that you just kind of, if you have that trained eye and that they don't have a long future, that's opportunity. And if you can absorb assets that are right next to your business,
exactly, even if it's just a space that's there, and even if you have your place and then you start dreaming about doing something different next door or a couple of doors down, even if you're doing that, it's a mental exercise, and there's nothing wrong with dreaming, and dreaming is free.
But you got to set yourself up to scale, right? You need to have the if you can make it easier, if you can look not just at what this restaurant is, but what the next couple restaurants, and if you can have it within walking distance or right next door, then you can be in 2 places.
And not only that, when you're in the restaurant business, you can't cram everything into one place, especially if you're creative. You have, because after a while, your restaurant is going to define itself for what it is. Yeah. And, then you have all these ideas, new influences. You might have gone on a trip somewhere, and you go like, oh, I'm really excited about doing this. And then you look at your restaurant, it's like, I can't do this here, and it frustrates me. Well, you might be able to do this 2 doors down. In a different format. So and that's a way of moving forward.
I think the other underlying message that I found that I pulled that just came to mind is that if you want something, let it be known. Tell the person that you're interested in buying or whatever. Because would the landlord have came over and told you that that property would have been for sale if you didn't go and let it be known that you wanted it in the first place? You know,
Probably.
So
Well, I
maybe.
don't know.
Who knows?
Maybe not.
But you gotta put it. You gotta put it out there.
Yeah.
You gotta put it into the universe, so the universe can reciprocate.
Yeah.
You know. So any other things that I'm missing from that are worth pulling to the surface?
No, I think for us it was great timing. How it happened, Perbacco was doing great. You know, it was a new restaurant, and that we did it so close together was tough. But at the same time, we were able to take some of our key people in the team to basically promote them.
Yeah.
One of the sous chefs that were here, she became the chef next door, and one of the assistant managers became the general manager. So I think you know, when you can grow steadily, you know, you also provide that opportunity for other people.
Awesome. So the only thing I would like to talk about is this third restaurant that you opened. What was the story behind that?
Well, you know, we very successful with these two places, and you know, we constantly, you know, either get approached by people saying, "Oh, you got this space," you know,
Success attracts,
exactly,
success.
you know, and you know, then we said, "Okay, is it time for us?" You know, this was like 2014, and we're like, "Yeah, we're getting the itch. We want to do something new." And then we're like, "Are we going to do Italian again?" And you know, there'd been a lot of Italian restaurants opening, and we kind of felt that, you know, do we really need to add another one to the mix? So Umberto said, why don't we do something out of your heritage, you know, Scandinavian, Swedish, and, you know, having lived and worked in Stockholm, I always remember these, and they're still there, you know, these old brasseries, you know, they're kind of a hybrid French, Swedish food, you know, you go in and you have your, you know, steak frites, and there's pickled herring, and you know, there's meatballs on the menu, and so on. You know, and I say, you know, why don't we go to Sweden? So Umberto and I went to Stockholm for a week, and he was like, wow, you know, this is really, really cool, and great food. And so we came back and started working on that. We found location, and you know, got our architect on board. We got people wanting to invest with us, and we opened up Volta. And the name Volta, you know, basically meaning turn away from what we've been doing, you know, going in a different direction. And everything went great. The only thing we did wrong was location was kind of turned to crap.
So what was it about the location? Get specific. How can we avoid making the same
Well,
mistake?
you know, the space was great. It was in a larger shopping center, but on the outside, the business that was there was failing. There was a ton of restaurants around us that were doing great, also newly open, so it kind of was building up to this new kind of different area of San Francisco, that up and coming. And you know, a lot of development going on and so on. So we're like, hey, let's get in on the ground floor of this, and you know, it'll be tons of people. You know, the convention center was rebuilding and so on. So we opened the restaurant. Great accolades, great reviews.
What was it about the location specifically, though?
You know, then little by little we saw a couple of other restaurants close, not making it. And a lot of it had to do with the infrastructure of San Francisco.
Which I got to experience firsthand.
Yeah,
This
and you know, the developments that were going to happen, you know, suddenly were in litigation because, you know, there's lawsuits and so on, and so they're delayed, and you know, the convention center is taking longer than it should, and then you have to deal with you know, the social situation of San Francisco. You know, just to be blunt and honest, you know, when you have homeless people outside your restaurant door, you know, making a mess, and you call cops or security, nothing is happening. And suddenly we started seeing a decline in business, and after a couple of incidents with happening around us, and media saying, hey, this is not a safe area to go in, and it just dropped off from there. So we had to make the decision at one point. It's like, do we go out and ask for more money to keep this going, or is that just going to be a Band-Aid?
Yeah.
Or do we pull the plug and be done with it and move on? And that's what we did. It hurt.
Yeah, I can imagine. But for the record, 60, you're shooting 66% right now. That's pretty good record.
Well,
you know?
I mean, if you're a baseball player, that would put you in the Hall of Fame, right?
Exactly. And even for even Danny Meyer has just closed restaurants. I mean, that the most successful people close restaurants.
You hear it. You never want to believe that it's going to happen to you, and now it has. And it still stings a little bit because we're both attached to it, and the fact that everything was right except for in hindsight we probably didn't do enough research on the location that we should have.
Well, you thought the convention center was coming; it was going to pull.
There was
business.
so many things around it that were very positive, but as in retrospect, if we would have picked another location, we probably would be still in business today.
The only question I can think to ask, or the most important question I can think to ask right now is, when do you know it's time to say, well, we tried? And is there like a bottom line, or is there a point that's like,
when you're bleeding money?
yeah.
I mean, there is a point where you have to look at the business you're doing currently when it's going down, and you look at how much money do we need to put back into this, and what is the timeline that is going to put us back in the black. I think too many restaurants hold on too long.
Yeah.
But it's a hard decision to make because it's personal investment. Not only of time and emotions, but there's personal investments in money. A lot of people sink their last cent into it, and
they need it to be.
Exactly.
It's like they burnt the ship. There's no turning back.
Exactly. And and I think that's where you have to make the decision, no matter how hard it is to accept the failure, learn from it, move on, and take care of what you have. There's so many horror stories of people that they save money all their life to open up their dream, and then it's not going that well, and then suddenly they start taking out a second mortgage. Well, it's like, wait a second, now you're going to be homeless.
Yeah.
You might not have a restaurant, but at least you have a home.
Yeah.
You can get another job. So it's when you get to that point where putting too much money into it for what it's worth, that's when you really have to look yourself in the mirror. And believe me, it was hard.
Chef Staffan, I've loved the free-flowing portion of this conversation. You've been extremely valuable. Great advice. I like to wrap up every chat before going to the speed round, asking my guests, first reminding them the mission statement is to inspire, empower, and transform the industry.
Yeah.
And how have you transformed? Who are you today? Who the man you are today versus the man you were when you got into this industry?
I'm a lot calmer. I'm not as hot-headed and so on. I've figured out, as I'm getting older, that, before it was all about the yelling and screaming chefs, and it's like, that's exhausting. It's and you don't really get anywhere with it. You're taking steps back. I think. Yeah, there's going to be moments that you get emotional about something, but keep it in check, and if you feel that you are so knowledgeable, you utilize knowledge that you have to deal with situations, and don't you know don't turn people away from you. Make them believe you, even when times are bad, and try to instill what you know to move them forward. Especially when you're going. I shouldn't say I'm in the end of my career. I don't feel that at all. I feel I still have a few more years in me, but
you're seasoned. You're ready.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But now it's the time for me to take what I know and teach, and help the next generations to be successful at what I've been enjoying.
Well, we appreciate you taking the time to share your story and your knowledge today. It was a pleasure making an example of you. One more. We're back, and the first question I have for you is, what is your it factor, a habit, a trait, a characteristic you believe most contributes to your success?
Never stop.
Oh, you're unstoppable.
Yeah, I don't. I keep going.
I love it. What is your biggest weakness?
I tend to get into my head too much in certain times, and I have to pull myself out, not overanalyze things.
What is one question you ask or thing you look for when you're building your team?
What was the first place you got a job at, and why?
What are you looking for?
For honesty. I tell people my story. To be honest with you, the first restaurant job I had was as a dishwasher, and I needed money so I could buy tickets to the Clash concert that was coming up 2 months later.
Yeah. Honesty is so important, right?
Yeah. It's get an honest answer from people, and try to find out why they really got into it. And when they answer honestly and say, "Hey, I worked as a dishwasher because I need money," that's honest.
Yeah. What is your biggest challenge today?
Oh, biggest challenge. I think for me, it's finding enough people, and especially in this area, that can afford to work in restaurants, because no, it doesn't pay as much as being a software developer.
Yeah.
And I think its biggest challenge is our job pool is dwindling.
And it's hard to get into the city.
Yeah,
it's
which hard to get in.
Found out this morning.
And it's hard for people to make it work. And you have to look at that too. The people that come and work for you are people also that need to pay bills, and to find that balance, that you can get somebody to come and work for you where they can afford at least somewhat of a good life.
Yeah, I think it's really important that restaurant owners get on the same page and realize that, hey, we need to stop competing against each other because we just react to the market and we react against each other.
Yeah.
And we need to get on the same page and say, hey, like, we're all going to slowly raise our prices over the next 6 months to be able to.
That's the reality of it.
We have to communicate. We have to get on the same page.
And I think everybody's in the same boat too. Not only us, but our purveyors.
Yeah.
The people that bring us the food. They have to raise their prices, but I think I think that's the greatest challenge of getting people actually wanting to work in the restaurants.
I bet. So share one code of conduct or behavior you teach your team. This is a way to be, a way to act. A core value.
A core value for me?
Yeah.
Be nice to people.
I love it. What is one uncommon standard of service you teach your team? Something that's common within your four walls, but not common within the industry.
Ooh. I don't know.
That's an Umberto question.
That's hard to... that's hard to define. I can't answer that question. I'm stumped.
I'll give you a pass. What is one book that's a must-read to make us a better person or restaurant owner?
Ooh. There's so many.
You can give me two if you can't think of one.
For a chef, you definitely have to pick up an older version of Escoffier. you have to do that just from the history knowledge of cooking. But
why the older version? I'm curious.
Because they've been edited and redone and so on. You find some older ones that they're a little bit more true.
Maybe an older one with someone's notes in it.
Oh yeah. I also think it's funny because I read a lot. I remember the one. It's called The 1 Minute Manager.
Yeah,
that was a good book.
What was a big lesson from that book?
Yeah, to really look at one of the lessons that stood out to me in that book was one where said, if I give you my car keys, can you start your own car? And the answer is no, which means that not every person works the same.
Yep.
You can't treat everybody exactly the same. There's you have to recognize how to deal with each individual, and I think that was a key lesson. I also like those little books called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff.
Okay.
They're like one-page chapters, and I think that from that teaches you that you have to be able to. There's so many things going on in a restaurant. You have to be able to define what's important now, and what can wait.
Prioritize, right?
Exactly.
You already mentioned the value of a list, and if you incorporate prioritization to a list, that's when a list gets super valuable.
Yeah, exactly.
So I know that the 1 minute manager,
and also I always tell people, it's like, don't just look at the list. There's so many other things that are not on there that you need to see yourself. Yeah.
I know that the 1 minute manager is on Audible. So if you head over to audibletrial.com/unstoppable, you can get that book for free if you're not already an Audible member. And I don't know if you listen to audiobooks, but they've changed my life. Yeah. I mean, especially people that are so busy in this industry. Like, I don't push a lot in the podcast, but audiobooks is one thing that I think everybody in this industry should have
especially when you're sitting in the car and you're stuck in traffic, it's perfect. You're not doing anything else than frustrating yourself. So, if you can plug in something,
might as well enjoy it.
Exactly, or learn something.
Exactly. Turn your car into a university.
Exactly.
What is one thing you feel restaurateurs don't do well enough or often enough?
Many things. Close. in a way, it sounds weird. I think a lot of times we try to be too many things to too many people.
Yeah.
And I think, coming from Europe, there's difference there. Suddenly, restaurant, hey, we're closing down for 2 weeks. We're going on vacation. And I think that is something we don't value enough here. That, if we can build that into our business model, that, hey, we're only going to operate 50 weeks out of the year and then give everybody a break, we might be better operators. Because, then I go like, well, those restaurants are successful over there. They're still in business and they can close up for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we try to be this 24/7 to everybody, but a lot of times that doesn't bring us the money we think we're going to make from it, and it also exhausts us.
Yeah.
Which
the pros don't outweigh the costs.
I think rest and especially mental rest is very, very important in our business to be able to recharge. Somebody wrote somewhere, it's like, if we would recharge ourselves as much as we recharge our phones, we would be a lot better off.
Well, I mean, back to my argument and why partnerships are so important. You can lean on each other.
Yeah.
If you need to unplug, there's somebody there that owns it, that you guys can call audibles and tag each other in and out. It's so valuable. What is one piece of technology you've adopted within the four walls of your businesses that has had a huge impact on communication, operations, efficiency, profitability, anything along those lines?
For as much as I hate to say it, smartphone.
Oh, yeah.
5-6 years ago, 7 years ago, I thought, texting was something high school kids did. And now I found that if I go through my text messages, 90% of them are business. Whether you're putting in an order, a lot of, there's some up and coming apps now that we actually use that's on your phone, and you do your daily ordering.
Which apps are you specific?
We use one app called Choco.
Okay. Your phone's right there if you want to check.
It's super simple, and they come in and they set up your order sheets, and it sends an email to the company, and it saves everybody time.
That's Choco. Spell that.
Yeah, CHOCO.
Right.
They've been operating in Europe for a while, and they're building here in U.S. and it's built on chatting, kind of like text messages, but you have your order sheets on there, and you just click and you get confirmation, and I think it saves everybody time.
Awesome.
And how it is, somebody is calling in a produce order at midnight, and they're tired and they're kind of going fast, and then you got some poor sod over in the produce company that has to pick up the phone and listen to that message, and they're tired because their shift is just starting, to disseminate that, where here's an email.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's some intelligence involved plugged into that too, which recognizes your past ordering, so you probably can just...
Yeah, you can pull up, you can repeat orders and so on. So, I would say, for something, and I don't like to use my phone as much as, a lot of people do for other things than business, really. I don't need to be connected all the time, so but it's something I do when I get home.
This is go ahead.
But it definitely is something, because you have it on you. I don't wear a watch.
Yeah.
It's my clock, so I gotta have it with me, and
it's part of human evolution now.
Yeah.
It's literally an extension of what we're becoming.
Yeah.
We are becoming what's the word?
Bionic.
Bionic. We are. What's the word? Cyborg.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's, think about it. We have pacemakers, we have hearing aids, we're eye contacts.
Yeah.
Like these are all enhanced body enhancing technologies.
Yeah.
It's just, now the phone, it's only a matter of time before the phone's injected into us somehow.
I think that, yeah.
We're right around the corner.
Yeah.
San Francisco's going to see it first. Tech company over here. All right, this is the last question. You ready for it?
Okay.
If you got the news, you'd be leaving this world tomorrow. All the memories of you, your work, and your restaurants would be lost with your departure, with the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom that you could leave behind for the good of humanity and for your legacy. What would those 3 pieces of wisdom be?
Ooh. Keep it clean, be kind, don't look back.
Keep it clean, be kind, don't look back. I've loved this conversation. Thank you so much, Stefan, for taking the time to share your story, your knowledge, your mentorship. I wrap up every chat by calling somebody out. So who's one independent restaurant operator, somebody you respect and admire and believe would make a great guest mentor like you've made for us today, preferably an owner?
Well, I have several colleagues here in San Francisco that I think are great. One of them actually has his own podcast, so I'm not going to call him out. But a dear friend and great chef, Ravi Kapoor, Liho Yacht Club, who very, very successful, on the way to open his 2nd restaurant now. And when he started, he was chef at another restaurant here in San Francisco, and then he just kind of stopped, and family reasons, new kid and so on, didn't really know what he wanted to do, but he's originally from Hawaii, and he wanted to do something with Hawaii, and he started this pop-up. And I was fortunate enough where he was like, hey, I need space to kind of do prep in. So he came and did a lot of his prep for his pop-ups, which were very, very successful. So I got to see the inception of his idea and try a lot of great things, and his pop-up turned into brick and mortar that is, now heralded as one of the best restaurants in
which is
in the
exactly how I would advise anybody getting into this industry. Start where you can, right?
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example of what I'm talking about. Robbie Kapoor, look out, I'm coming after you. And you've got me intrigued. Who is this person that you were thinking of who has their own podcast?
Oh, Chris Cosentino.
Chris Cosentino. I think yeah. I've
He's
seen
a crazy man, and I love him.
I would love. I mean, that wouldn't stop me from getting him on the show.
So yeah, him too. Great story. Great guy. He's from New England, like you. So, yeah, and there's so many chefs out there that I would give a shout out to. List just keeps going. Working in San Francisco, living here in the Bay Area, one thing that I'm so fortunate and grateful for is that my colleagues, the other chefs around here, I always say, we always play well with each other. There's so many other places where it's so competitive and cutthroat, and you hear it from other people, but here people are pretty cool. And we help each other out and exchange ideas, so it's a pretty good place to be.
Robbie, Chris, I'm coming after both of you guys. Look out. And just, again, thank you so much for taking the time to share your story, your knowledge, your mentorship.
Oh, thank you.
There is no questioning, my man. You are unstoppable.
I hope so. It takes a lot. It takes a lot to stop me.
You're great. Cheers, man.
Thank you.